Hare Krishna. Hope the screen is visible to all.
Ji Prabhu ji.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for taking out your time for our second session of chapter 4. To begin with, let us start our day by offering prayers to Shri Radha Govinda and our Guru Parampara. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadadi Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Savarna Raghunathanvitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalitam Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhasya cha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrind ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Guru Maharaj ki Jai. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So last session we completed chapter 4 sloka up to 20, right? So let us quickly try to recap what we discussed in our last session, and then we can move further with our today's session. So somebody can briefly tell what are the key points we touched upon in last session. Hare Krishna. So we started our chapter 4 with 4 paramparas, sampradayas, and understood what is the importance of this parampara. Why should we gain the knowledge of the Supreme Lord through this parampara system? And also we discussed about Varnashrama Dharma, and the various divisions in Varnashrama Dharma was discussed. And then we learned Ye Yatamam Prapadyante, the degree to which we are surrendered, Krishna reciprocates. And finally, we have got into the Karma Yoga section, where with the transcendental knowledge, how do we engage in our karmas, right? So these are some of the points we had discussed. Now today, let us move further with Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, sloka 21. So somebody wish to take up? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu.
Nirashiriyata chittatma tyakta sarva parigraha sariram kevalam karma kurvanapnoti kilbisham. Such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions, and acts only for the bare necessities of life. Thus working, he is not affected by sinful reactions.
Thank you, Prabhu. So 4.22 also you can read.
Yadriksha labha santushto dvanvatito vimatsara samaha siddhava siddhaucha kritvapi na nibadhyate. He who is satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord who is free from duality and does not envy, who is steady in both success and failure, is never entangled, all the performing actions.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Prabhu. So in this shloka, one of the key thing again we learn here is to give up all sense of proprietorship over his one's possession, right? So previously also we discussed about Ishavasya principle, in which it says Ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatan jagat tena tatvena bunjita magrida kashyasvit dhanam. So everything, animate as well as inanimate, everything belongs to Krishna. So we as aspiring devotees, we need to understand this, who the real proprietor of everything what we have, and knowing with this true knowledge, we have to utilize based on our quota and do not endeavor for more. Yeah. So leaving aside Krishna consciousness just for our own sense enjoyment, going after material opulences is not the right thing to do, is what we need to learn. And it is always said, even by Prabhupada, is to keep our life simple and do not endeavor more than required for mundane material things. And again, this is also said is as the one of the impediments of progressing in our Krishna consciousness. So we have seen people working very, very hard, 14 hours, 16 hours a day. They work so hard. But do they have the knowledge of the Supreme Lord? They don't know. Why they are working so hard? Because they want to have more opulences. Why they need more opulences? For their own sense enjoyment. So that is not going to yield any beneficial results. So this is one important thing we need to learn. And further, in 4.22, it again says that a person in Krishna consciousness does not make much endeavor even to maintain his body. So some of the examples of our Shad Goswamis leaving all their opulences, moving into Vrindavan and spreading the knowledge given by Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So they were living with very, very minimum requirements, and their all focus was to spread the knowledge of the Supreme. And he said that he is satisfied with whatever is obtained by his own honest labor. And one more important point we learn in this shloka is Krishna consciousness person is above all the dualities, all the good and bad. They have raised above that. It's a very important lesson to learn from this. So in our further shloka, we are going to touch upon this raising above these dualities, right? Moving further, so 4.23, somebody can take up. Hare Krishna. So, Gata Sangasya Muktasya Jnanavastita Chetasaha Yagnaya Charata Karma Samagram Praviliyate. So can somebody read the English translation?
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence.
Thank you, Prabhu. So 4.23 is to try the sloka.
Hare Krishna. Text
Yes. Yes, Mataji.
4.24. Brahmarpanam Brahma Virpahagno Brahmanahutam Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. Translation. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities, in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Nice to see you back in the class.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah. So in this, The Krishna consciousness person, again it is said, is freed from all kind of dualities and contamination of material mode. And knowing his constitutional relationship with Krishna. So we need to understand that, as I've said, the rising above dualities. So the practicing devotees, do they not have good days or bad days in their lives, right? So they also have to go through all the good and bad in their life. But the devotees who have surrendered to Krishna, whatever good things are happening, the mood of the devotee is, I absolutely don't deserve any of this. It is purely Krishna's mercy. At the same time, whenever the bad situation going through, the pure devotee thinks whatever has happened till now and whatever is happening now and whatever will happen later in future, everything is plans of Krishna, and he is the Supreme Father. So Supreme Father will have always a best thing for us. So presently, with our limited knowledge, we may think it is bad to us, but everything which is happening is will of Krishna. And when we have surrendered, we have lot more better. The way we react to that situation is lot better. Our perspective completely changes, and with full surrender and with full confidence, we respond to the situation, and we will rise above such difficult situations. And it is said that, as an analogy is, the patient suffering from indulgence in milk product is cured by another milk product, namely curd. Similarly, all the material entanglement what we are into, only way to rise above this is engaging in Krishna consciousness. So as we chant, what is happening is it is purifying our heart. As a result of purified heart, all the anarthas is going out and the Krishna consciousness is rising. So that way we will break free from this material entanglement. And it is said that mind fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, it is said as it is in samadhi, right? So the mood of a devotee when he is managing all his material opulences, how it, some of the couple of examples given in the purport by Prabhupada is, a cashier, he does transactions of millions of rupees in bank, isn't it? But does he has the sense of ownership? Absolutely no. But the moment he want to have a penny out of it, then he will be arrested. So that is how, when we want to enjoy when we want to lord over this material nature, then we will be arrested by Maya. And couple of other examples it is mentioned is, it is just like a soldier killing his enemy in the border. So it says that a soldier killing people in army is awarded Paramveer Chakra. Whereas once he is out of the duty and he goes and kills his neighbor, he will be immediately arrested for murder, isn't it? Similarly, even in Mahabharata, Arjuna fighting for Dharma Yuddha on behalf of Supreme Lord Krishna, whereas Duryodhana is fighting for his own selfish plans. Now we are moving to the next section, 4.25 to 4.33. So in this, we are going to discuss about various types of sacrifices which will lead us to the transcendental knowledge. So there are various, from 4.25 to 4.29, various kind of sacrifices have been discussed. So yesterday we have discussed at length about demigod worship. So few sacrifice, do some sacrifices for demigods, which is covered in 4.25. Also Mayavadis sacrifice for the Brahman, and Brahmacharis, they engage in hearing process and by controlling their senses. Yeah, so maintaining their celibacy. So this is also a sacrifices to rise in their transcendental knowledge. How grihasthas are sacrificing is by having regulated object of senses. These are all regulated. And then 4.27 talks about Ashtanga Yoga. So how through Patanjali Yoga system, how one try to control his life breath and focus on the Brahman and try to rise in their transcendental knowledge. And it is also discussed 4.23 about various charities being given. So charitable charities given for institutions, old age homes are discussed, and austerities, Tapomaya Yagna is called. So that will be discussed further. And Yoga Yagna, sacrifice for certain perfection in the material world through Patanjali system, Ashtanga Yoga, and so on. And study of scriptures is discussed in 4.28, study of Vedanta Sutra, which is known as Swadhyaya Yagna, and Hatha Yoga and Pranayama in 4.29. So let us see in detail what is mentioned here. So somebody can take up this sloka, please.
Hare Krishna, 4.25. Daivameva pare yagnam yoginaha paryupashate brahmajnava pare yagnam yagnai naivopajuhkati. Translation. Some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them, and some offer sacrifices in the fire of the Supreme Brahman. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. So we have already discussed before sloka number 5.29, which clearly says it is the peace formula. Bhoktaram Yagnatapasam Sarva Loka Maheshwaram Surdam Sarva Bhutanam Dhyatva Shantim Rachati. So to whatever way we are engaging in these sacrifices, even to the demigod, ultimately it is all reaching to the Supreme Lord. So it is always better to satisfy Vishnu than any other indirect methods, which is temporary. We need to understand that. And we also discussed about the analogy of watering the root. So in a plant, when we water to the root, all the leaves, twigs, branches, fruits, flower, everything is been nourished. Similarly, when we offer our sacrifices to Krishna, all the demigods, everybody are satisfied. However, the one who engage in demigod worship and offer sacrifices to them, they are called Bhava Ishvara Vadis, believer in many gods. Now, yesterday we also discussed what should be our mood when we go to the demigod, go to a temple where demigod is being worshipped. So the knowledge, whatever we have gained through Bhagavad Gita, as well as listening to all our Guru Parampara and senior Vaishnavas, our mood should always be pray for Krishna Bhakti. So all the demigods are all great devotees of Krishna, and with that mood, we should go and pray for rising in our Krishna Bhakti and service attitude. That is the right way of demigod worship. The sacrifices to demigod and Supreme Brahman. So the primary division of sacrifices is captured here in this slide. So the sacrifices for worldly possessions or sacrifices in pursuit of transcendental knowledge. So always sacrifices in pursuit of transcendental knowledge is the right way for us to progress. And again, the comparison for various sacrifices have been discussed here. Demigod worship. So why it is done? It is for material possession, for material enjoyment. And they worship demigod for various material benefits, and it is called Bahu Ishvara Vadis. And impersonalist. So they sacrifice all their sense enjoyment, everything. So they want to merge into the Supreme Brahman. Whereas Krishna consciousness devotees, they sacrifice all their material possession and only their intention is to for the satisfaction of Krishna. And even by example, Arjuna also sacrifices everything for the satisfaction of Krishna. So let us move to 4.26. Somebody can take up.
4.26 Shrotraadinindriyananye samyapmagnishu juhvati shabdadin vishayanyanya indriyagnishu juhvati. Translation: Some, the unadulterated brahmacharis, sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control, and others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. So here, as we discussed, how a brahmachari engage in his sacrifices as well as grihasthas and so on. The four orders, whatever is created as per varnashrama dharma, the brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha and sannyasi, all these things, the sacrifice they are doing because for the gradual purification of their sense enjoyment propensities. And brahmacharis till the age of 25, they maintain strict celibacy and engage in shastric studies, whereas the grihasthas, they have little freedom in their sense enjoyment, so they have regulated sense enjoyments. So to beget the Krishna consciousness kids, they engage in sexual activity with proper garbhadana sampradaya and so on. And even whatever they are earning, certain percentage they try to offer to Krishna for various services in Krishna consciousness. That way they are purifying all their income and engaging through their all their whatever their assets and opulences in service of Krishna. And it is also said that it's a responsibility of grihasthas to get into such contributions so that brahmacharis and sannyasis can engage in their own services. So let's move to 4.23.
Hare Krishna. 4.27 Sarvanindriya karmani prana karmani chapare atma samyama yogagnau jukpati jnana deepite. Translation: Others who are interested in achieving self-realization through control of the mind and senses offer the functions of all the senses and of the life breath as oblations into the fire of the controlled mind. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. So through this sloka, Prabhupada in his purport, he also explains about the Patanjali yoga system. So in this, in Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, the soul is called Pratyag Atma and Parag Atma. There are two kind of Atma in this system. So what is Pratyag and Parag Atma? So Parag Atma, as long as the soul is attached to the sense enjoyment, it is known as Parag Atma. And the soul detached from this sense enjoyment, such a soul is known as Pratyag Atma. And Patanjali system of yoga instructs how to control the functions of the body and air so that ultimately it purifies the souls from all the material attachments. So 4.28.
Hare Krishna. 4.28 Dravya yajnastapo yajna yoga yajnastata pare swadhyaya yajnaya nayajnascha yataha samchita vrata. Translation: Having accepted strict oaths, some become enlightened by sacrificing their possessions, and others by performing severe austerities. By practicing the yoga of eightfold mysticism, or by studying the Vedas to advance in transcendental knowledge. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. So this sloka discuss about various type of yagnas, and by performing such a yagna, how one gradually rise in their transcendental knowledge. So starting with Dravyamaya Yagna. So all the charitable activities one who is doing, such yagna is known as Dravyamaya Yagna. And the higher elevation to rise to the higher planets. So such an austerities, it is called Chandrayana and the Chaturmasa Yagna. Such a yagna is known as Tapomaya Yagna. And some engage in study of literatures, Vedic study of Vedas, Upanishad, Vedanta Sutras. So such yagna is known as Swadhyaya Yagna. So even in the beginning of this session, it is said Swadhyaya is very, very important. Self-study is important. So when we study, we get lot of doubts. So through these such classes, we can get it clarified and progress in our transcendental knowledge, realization of our knowledge. So 4.29.
Apane juhvati pranam prane panam tada pare pranapana gati rudva pranayama parayanaha. Translation. Still others who are inclined to the process of breath restrained to remain in trance practice by offering the movement of the outgoing breath into the incoming and the incoming breath into the outgoing, and thus at last remain in trance, stopping all breathing. Others, curtailing the eating process, offer the outgoing breath into itself as a sacrifice.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. So this is further detailing about the Ashtanga yogis, how they control their breath and focus their mind, controlling all their sense urges, controlling the mind, focus on the Paramatma feature. So this system of controlling the breathing process is known as pranayama. So all these process, why it is being done is to control one sense and rise in their spiritual realization. However, we understand in detail in further chapters, Ashtanga Yoga, there is a separate chapter on this. So it is practically impossible in this age of Kali to go to a secluded place, leave everything and completely focus on the mind and leaving away all these controlling the senses, controlling the mind. It is practically very, very impossible in this age of Kali. So 4.30.
Apare nihate haraha pranan praneshu juhvati sarvepyeto sarvepyete yagnavido yagnakshapita kalmashaha. Translation. All these performers who know the meaning of sacrifice become cleansed of sinful reactions, and having tasted the nectar of the results of sacrifices, they advance toward the supreme eternal atmosphere. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. So the common aim of all this yoga we need to understand is to control the senses. So a lot of emphasis is being given to control the senses. So we as grihasthas, we have to engage in regulated sense enjoyment. Gradually we have to reduce and then fix up completely in Krishna consciousness. So in Krishna consciousness, now in Ashtanga yogis, what they are doing, they are completely cutting off all the sense activities and trying to focus. Whereas in Krishna consciousness, we are engaging all our senses in service of Krishna. So can somebody say how we are engaging our senses in service of Krishna?
By chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and taking Krishna Prasadam. This is what I know, Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji. So we are looking at the deities, we are smelling the flower, we are hearing the glories of Krishna, we are glorifying with our tongue, we are doing some deity services with these hands. So all these way we are engaging in Krishna consciousness. So all the senses are engaged in Krishna consciousness. This is Very, very important. And also, one of the root cause for our material entanglement is our uncontrolled sense gratification. So till the time one control their senses and regulate their senses, control their senses, it is very difficult to rise in our transcendental knowledge. So 4.31.
Hare Krishna. Yagnasista bhujo yanti brahma sanatanam nyayam lokostaya yagnasya kutonyaha kurusattama. Translation. O best of the Kuru dynasty, without sacrifice, one can never live happily on this planet or in this life. What then of the next? Hare Krishna.
Yes. Thank you, Mataji. So in purport, Prabhupada very detailedly discussed, like as we know, there are 8.6 million species through which, through the transmigration, we have taken the human form. And it is said human form is the only way to break free from these material entanglements. And the ignorance is the cause. Yeah, ignorance is the cause of all our sinful life, and that is what is further dragging us in this material entanglement and getting into this vicious cycle of birth and death. So the Vedas give us the direction how to break free from these material entanglements. So as we have heard before, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So through the directions, through the Vedas, we understand what is dharma, what is the religion we have to follow. And through various economic comforts, regulated sense gratification, the kama, regulated sense gratification, and purifying ourselves through chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna. Yeah. Yes. So through this purification process, one liberate from these material entanglements. So next sloka 4.32.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
एवं बहुविधा यज्ञ विततो ब्रह्मणो मुखे कर्मजान् विधितान् सर्वानेवं ज्ञात्वा विमोक्ष्यसे. All these different types of sacrifice are approved by the Vedas, and all of them are born of different types of work. Knowing them as such, you will become liberated.
Yes, Prabhu, thank you.
Yes.
So as we saw, different type of sacrifices are being done by different type of people. Why? Because most of them are living in a bodily concept of life. Very few have rise to a stage where they realize we are not this body, we are the spirit soul. So the ultimate aim of all this gradual purification, all these sacrifices, is to rise in our spiritual realization. So it is seen, few take one birth. There are many examples of people taking one lifetime to get this realization and go back to Krishna. At the same time, many take millions and millions of birth to rise to that stage. So Krishna has given us free will. The choice is ours. If we choose to serve Krishna in this lifetime, we can go back to Krishna as prescribed by following the footsteps of our Acharya. Srila Prabhupada has given us a very clear direction. Prabhupada says, follow the 4 regulative principles and chant minimum 16 rounds and engage in devotional service under the guidance of Guru Parampara, association of pure devotees. And in this lifetime, Prabhupada guarantees to take us back to the Godhead. So 4.33, somebody can take up. Hare Krishna.
Shreyan dravyamaya jnana yajnah parantapa sarvam karma kilam partha jnane parisamapyate. Translation. O chastiser of the enemy, the sacrifice performed in the knowledge is better than the mere sacrifice of material possessions. After all, O son of Prida, all sacrifices of work culminate in transcendental knowledge. Hare Krishna.
Yes, thank you, Mataji. So as it is said, all the sacrifices are culminating in transcendental knowledge. So the purpose of all the sacrifices is to gain the knowledge of the absolute truth and to free ourselves from this material misery and entanglements. So without attainment of knowledge, sacrifice remains just a material platform. So whatever sacrifices we are doing, we should, our mood of sacrifice, whenever we are offering that, it is purely to please the Supreme Lord, not for any name, fame. So when we are doing the sacrifice for the name and fame, then it is purely a material platform. So this is very important. So the real knowledge culminates in Krishna consciousness. The highest stage of transcendental knowledge we get only by engaging in Krishna consciousness activities. So the section, we are moving into the last section in chapter 4. So in this, we are going to discuss how to achieve transcendental knowledge. Now, we discussed about the transcendental knowledge. Now, what do we need to do? How do we achieve this transcendental knowledge? And what is the fruit of transcendental knowledge? Who can successfully achieve transcendental knowledge? The symptom of one who has successfully applied this knowledge to rise in his spiritual realization, and how he can put the transcendental knowledge to work and conclusion. So this we will discuss in detail. So this is a very, very important verse. So somebody can take up.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu, please.
Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya updekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, it is a very, very important sloka where Krishna himself is saying that we have to surrender. We have to accept a guru. We have to surrender and offer menial services and seek the knowledge, because Jnaninas tattva darshinaha. So those jnanis have already seen the tattva, the absolute truth. So that it is said that the path of self-realization is very, very difficult if you are on your own. With your own endeavors, if you want to rise, you always end up in wrong path. And that is why the Krishna advises us to approach the spiritual master, and bona fide spiritual master who is coming in disciplic succession. This is very, very important. And also Prabhupada says, you have to use your intelligence to choose your guru, right? So there are many, many mental speculators and philosophical speculators, very easy to fall trap into them. And again, Krishna, as he said, yem yatamam prapadyante, to degree to which you have surrendered, Krishna reciprocates. So if you are sincere to rise in your Krishna consciousness, Krishna will help you find the right guru. But if you are not genuine in your intentions, then you will tend to fall trap and fall in these wrong hands. And even in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 3, Sloka 19, it is said that Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranita. So the path of religion is directly spoken by the Lord. So Guru Shishya Parampara starts from Krishna, and through this Parampara, we are getting this knowledge. So it is very, very important to stay within this Parampara and gain this knowledge than falling prey to mental speculations and dry arguments. So that is the very reason Prabhupada also has kept this Bhagavad Gita as it is. So just follow the Guru Parampara. And this sloka again, as it said, is the guru, such a guru coming from this bona fide disciplic succession, we have to surrender and offer him menial. You have to surrender as a menial servant and seek knowledge from him by asking questions humbly is also important. So 4.35.
यज्ञात्वन पुनर्मोहम् एवं याशसि पाण्डव येन भूतान्यशेषेण द्रक्ष्यस्यात्मन्यतो मयि. Translation: having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion. For by this knowledge, you will see that all living beings are but part of the Supreme, or in other words, that they are mine. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. So here again, Krishna says, when you surrender to a bona fide spiritual master, then your illusion will go off. So you start getting the real knowledge. What is the real knowledge we are getting? Everything getting out of Vedas, it is directing towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, isn't it? And it also gives us a knowledge that Atato Brahma Jignasa, we are the Brahmans. We are not this body, we are the spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna. And what is our purpose? Is to engage in devotional service, purify ourselves and go back to Krishna. So this is the knowledge, this is the crux of entire thing what we are discussing. And very important to know, can we now, knowing that we have to engage in devotional service, can we directly engage devotional service to Krishna? No, that is what we learned in our previous sloka. Tadvidi paripatena pariprashnena seveya upadeshanta te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshinaha. So our problem is we are in this illusion that we are this body, right? So even if we look back, Arjuna was also thinking that he was also in this bodily concept of life, and the temporary body relationship with his kinsmen, he was thinking that is more important than following the orders of the Supreme Lord Krishna. That was his initial thought process when the entire Bhagavad Gita, the chapter 1 started. So now move on to 4.36.
अपि चेदसि पापेभ्यः सर्वेभ्यः पापकृत्तमः सर्वं ज्ञानप्लवेनैव वृजिनं सन्तरिष्यसि. Translation: even if you are considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. So the only way to cross over from the ocean of misery is Krishna consciousness. Yeah, we have to raise our consciousness on Krishna, and how we can raise our consciousness in Krishna is the best way is chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So it is very important for all of us to rise in our chanting. We need to chant offenselessly. We need to chant with intensity. We need to chant with full attention. Initially, it is not possible, but with practice, we can rise. So many times a question is asked, how to improve our quality of chanting? Many times when we are chanting, our mind is always, it is wandering. So one of the senior sannyasi, he says is, increase your quantity, the quality will follow. Yeah. So at our level, we need to chant more. As we chant more, the quality will also come. As the quality comes in, the heart starts purifying. It is like farming. If any farming activity a farmer is doing, first thing he is going to do is he has to sow the soil, isn't it? So he has to make the soil fertile. So how the soil is fertile? Similarly, our heart needs to be purified, and then Bhakti Lata Bij is sown, and we have to water it through our devotional services. Reading Prabhupada books is very, very important. So with this, we rise in our realization and Krishna Bhakti, and then we firm up in Krishna Bhakti and attain Krishna Prema. So this is very, very important thing we need to understand. And finally, Krishna, as he says, Sarva Dharmam Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Raja Aham Tam Sarva Papebhyo Moksha Swami Mashuchaha. Right? So I am sure you all wish to surrender to Krishna. And how we can surrender to Krishna? Absolutely, it is so difficult. Morning 4:30 when we want to wake up without alarm, it is very difficult. And even if we have kept alarm, we continue to snooze. So every minute we are not waking up in Brahma Muhurta, we are choosing to serve our own body than serving Krishna. So our conditioning is so strong. It is not easy to leave Maya and surrender to Krishna. And what is the only way to break free from this material entanglement is chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Chanting in association of devotees is very, very helpful. So even in ISKCON Mangalore, morning after Mangalarti, there is a online Japa session. More than 100 plus devotees are joining. So you can also take this opportunity, come chant together. So that way the purification will be much faster. So let's move to 4.37.
यथैथांसि समिद्धोऽग्निः भस्मसात् कुरुते अर्जुन ज्ञानाग्निः सर्वकर्माणि भस्मसात् कुरुते तदा. Translation: as a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reaction to material activities. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. So all this knowledge, whatever we are gaining, this transcendental knowledge is compared to the blazing fire, which burn off all our impious as well as pious, all the karmas we have gathered from both pious as well as impious. So we have learned the importance of akarma. So we are overcoming both pious and impious reactions of work. And then we rise above the concept of both hell as well as heaven. So our destination is going back to Krishna, Godhead, the Goloka. So 4.38.
Nahi jnanena sadrusham pavitramiha vidyate tatsvayam yoga samsiddhaha kalena atmani vindyati. Translation: in this world, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism. And one who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service enjoys this knowledge within himself in due course of time. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. So here in purport, a very beautiful concept Prabhupada explains is the ignorance is the cause of bondage and the knowledge is the cause of liberation. And the knowledge, what is the knowledge? Of the Supreme Lord, and we being the servitor, this knowledge will liberate us at once. And he need not have to search for peace elsewhere. Prabhupada says, for he enjoys peace by searching within himself, trying to understand we are not this body, we are the spirit soul, and the purpose of this soul is to serve the Supreme Lord. So with this, he understands it. The Krishna consciousness culminates in peace as well as knowledge. And it is said, this is the last word of Bhagavad Gita. Further, the rewards of transcendental knowledge, we understood, will obtain knowledge and realization that all living entities are part and parcel. Yeah, and 4.36 we learned will cross over ocean of misery by this knowledge and engaging in Krishna consciousness, and by the knowledge of self and the super soul and their relationship. This knowledge will burn all the sinful reactions and achieves self-realization as the mature fruit of all mysticism, and finally gets devotional service. So we'll move to 4.39.
Hare Krishna. Shraddhavan labhate jnanam tatparaha samyatendriyaha jnanam labdha param shanti machirenadi gacchati. Translation: a faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses is eligible to achieve such knowledge, and having achieved it, he quickly attained the supreme spiritual peace.
Yes, thank you, Mataji. So as we discussed before, the first stage of bhakti is Shraddha. The faith is very, very important. How do we fix up in this faith? Is by engaging in devotional service and chanting. Again, we are saying again and again in every purport, Prabhupada emphasized the importance of chanting and knowing that we are not this body, we are spirit, soul. It's multiple times Prabhupada keep repeating. Many times I have also wondered why Prabhupada has repeated this so many times. So even after repeating so many times, still we are so conditioned, not only from this, from many, many births. It requires that much more repetition for ourselves to understand we are not this body, we are spirit, soul. The only way to purify our heart is chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. When you chant, when the heart gets pure, when you read Prabhupada books, all this transcendental knowledge, we are in a much better position to accept without any of our mental speculation. We try to accept as it is. So this is very, very important. And one more important, again, as we discussed multiple times, is regulation of our senses. Engaging in sense enjoyment activities, engaging in sense gratification activity. Prabhupada says it is like adding fuel to the fire. We may think that let me engage in this one time, but that one time will never ever stop. Only way to stop is to regulate and move away from that kind of sense enjoyment with your intelligence. So that is very important. Mind always plays a spoil sport. It tries to bring in those memory of that temporary happiness, whatever we have enjoyed. And we tend to fall down every time. So by gaining this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, we have to rise in our intelligence and stay away from such engagements. And a person who is faithful to Krishna and who controls his senses can attain perfection, is what we learn through this sloka. So let us move further to 4.40.
Hare Krishna. Agnascha Shraddhanascha Samshayatma Vinashyati Nayam Lokosti Na Paro Na Sukham Samshayatmanaha. Translation: but ignorant and faithless persons who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain God consciousness. They fall down. For the doubting soul, there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. This again is a very important sloka. The doubting soul will never get happiness neither in this nor next birth. Yeah. So if we see in our day-to-day practically also, we have so much of faith. For example, I book a cab, right? A taxi driver comes and pick me and he takes me to the destination. Have I ever checked his driving license? No. When I'm traveling by air, yeah, pilot is taking us from one location to other location. We never check this certificate, isn't it? Other day I was talking to one person who is working for one big multinational company in a data analytic subject. So she asked me, what is the guarantee of all these Vedas, whatever we are learning, what is the guarantee of this? Then I asked her one very simple question. What is a plus b the whole square? So she said a square plus b square plus 2ab. I asked her, why not 3ab or why not 4ab? Have you ever checked this? So materially, we never question all these things. We directly take it. But Vedas, which is steadily staying so strong for last 5,000 years or even before, but we always have doubt to accept it. That again is not, it is purely because of our own conditioning, and many times we don't accept because of fear of leaving such sense enjoyments. So this is very, very important to have the faith in whatever we are getting through Vedas, accept as it is, and through that faith, the revelation happens within, and we can experience that transcendental ecstasy. So who can achieve the transcendental knowledge is one who has faith. Faith is very, very important, and one who is free from all the doubts. So be free from all the mental speculations, accept as it is, and this is the absolute truth. Now we'll move to another two more slokas for the day. So 4.41.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Yoga sanyasta karmanam jnana sanchina sanshayam atmavantam na karmani nibadhananti dhananjaya. One who acts in devotional service, renouncing the fruits of his actions, and whose doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge, is situated factually in the self. Thus he is not bound by the reaction of work, O conqueror of riches. Hare Krishna.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. So here we need to understand the Supreme Lord is the deliverer of the conditioned soul. He is the supplier of everything to us. He is the maintainer of us. And he is also witness. Whatever intentions we have, he is also the witness. And he gives the knowledge of Veda. And the Krishna, the teacher of the Bhagavad Gita, he is the worshipable God of the conditioned soul. And we need to understand Krishna is all merciful. So we are moving to the last sloka for the day. Yeah, please.
Tasmad jnana sambhutam krutastam jnana sinatmanah chitvainam samshayam yogamatistotista bharata. Translation. Therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand and fight. Hare
Yes.
Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. So through this chapter, some of the key aspects what we have learned is sacrifice of our material possessions. So what should be the mood of us when we are contributing to any of these services? Our mood should be, it is our responsibility. As a responsibility, we are doing it without any expectations. So many people we have seen, many people going to Tirupati temple, they think that they offer 100 rupees in the undi, the Govinda is going to return them 10 times. So such mood is very, very dangerous for our spiritual progress. And we also learn the knowledge of self. We are not this body, we are the spirit soul. And it is said that if material sacrifice is not dovetailed with the spiritual realization, then such sacrifice just become a material activity. Yeah, this is one important thing we learned. And on the spiritual knowledge, we understood about self as well as the supreme soul, the Sri Krishna. And we also understood the sampradayas, the disciplic succession, and the importance of accepting the spiritual master and offering them service and knowing the knowledge of absolute truth. And further, it is said that one who understands Krishna being the supreme person and we being the eternal servants of Krishna, by regulating our senses, engaging in devotional service under the guidance of Supreme Master and association of pure devotees. So such a person will be free from mode of ignorance and he will be fixed up in absolute transcendental knowledge. So this is what we learned through this Jnana Yoga chapter. So with this, let me see. Yeah. As finally it says, "O Bharata, stand and fight." So Arjuna had this doubt. Once he fights, he will be getting into sinful reactions. So through this transcendental knowledge, there is no sinful reaction can affect one when he is performing duty as a service to Krishna, and a slash with knowledge all doubts of born ignorance. What it is said. So this section we have already discussed. So with this, I will come to end of this chapter. Thank you very much for patiently listening. So any quick questions for the day we can discuss. Is attendance link has been shared? Yeah, I think it is shared.
Yes, Prabhuji, I have received it.
Yes. So any
We
quick
gave it,
questions?
Prabhuji.
Yes. So any realizations, anything you wish to share, you are free to discuss, and then we can wind up our session for the day. So
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
yeah, anything you learned from today's session, any 1 or 2 points can also be shared for benefit of all. Whatever you liked from the session, discuss.
As I understood, Prabhu, we have to control our senses and we have to surrender ourselves with the full faith.
Yes.
And the yajnas and all this we perform to satisfy, while doing satisfying demigods, actually it goes to Supreme Personality of Krishna only.
Yes,
So
Mataji,
totally I understood for
Thank you,
today,
Mataji. Thank
Prabhu,
you.
from this.
Yes, yes. So anybody wish to contribute? So no questions, no contributions. So let us end our session for the day.
Hare
And,
Krishna, Prabhu. I have one doubt, Prabhu, not from Bhagavad Gita.
yes.
In general, like yesterday, I was reading Bhagavatam first canto, Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji.
There, it's mentioned like there are 20 incarnations, but generally we know only 10 incarnations, like Kapila and Swayambhu and all are also incarnation of God. But why we only know, like everywhere they say 10 incarnations only in
Yes,
general.
yes. Yeah, 10 primary incarnations. As it is said, there are hundreds and thousands of such incarnations of Krishna happening every minute in different Brahmandas. It is not only 10, 20. Krishna's appearance is inconceivable, Mataji. Krishna appears, Nama Rupe Krishna Avatar. The Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of Krishna. So there are many such incarnations. So primary 10 incarnations is being discussed in Dashavatara.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna,
Thank you
Prabhu.
then. Vancha kalpatarubhasya cha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo nama. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrind ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. Thank you. All glories to assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. We'll end
Prabhuji,
our session
Hare
today.
Krishna, Prabhu. Next class will be on Saturday, no?
Next class is on Saturday and Sunday, Prabhu.
Saturday and
Actually,
Sunday.
I'm on the summer vacation. I'm traveling to Kerala with family. Hoping wherever I'm traveling, there is a network connection well, and we'll try to continue the session.